Situated between two gorges lies a mountain of intrigue and mystery, where a story of heroism and tragedy was hidden for centuries. The Gamla Nature Reserve, located in the most breathtaking scenic surroundings, offers spectacular views with a waterfall, overlooks the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, offers hikes for all levels, has a bird of prey nesting colony, and fascinating archaeology. For nearly 2 centuries, the harrowing story of Gamla was only known through the writings of Josephus Flavius, the Jewish general during the Great Revolt of 67 to 73 CE, who later became a historian. However, after the 1967 war, archaeologists began searching in the Golan for the location of this historic tale. They discovered an area situated on a rugged spur of land resembling a camel's back. Gamla is from the Hebrew word gamal, which means a camel, at last revealing to archaeologists its true location. The ancient ruins are the main part of the story here. The Hashmonaean king Alexander Yonai in the beginning of the 1st century BCE captured this area and it became a Jewish settlement. It had grown to be a wealthy city with its economy centering around the production of high-quality olive oil, as evidenced by the remains of numerous olive presses. Gamla was a religious area, as attested to by the presence of a synagogue, mikvaot, or ritual baths, and the abundance of stone vessels. Stone items don't become ritually impure. This was a devout, industrious, prosperous community. Life was comfortable and thriving until the Great Revolt. The Great Revolt against the Romans began in the year 66 CE. Gamla was home to the Zealots movement, which opposed the Romans. It has a natural fortress flanked on 3 sides by deep, inaccessible ravines. It was only accessible by the eastern side. Being that the eastern side was vulnerable, Josephus had a 6-meter deep defensive wall built. The defenders of Gamla felt that their city was impregnable because of their topography. King Agrippa II, who was a vassal king under the Roman authority, besieged the settlement for 7 months. The defenders successfully held out and the siege failed. This brought the command of Vespasian and his son Titus along with 3 Roman legions. Together they were 16,000 Roman legionnaires, plus extra reinforcements from Agrippa's army. They were against 9,000 defenders of Gamla, many of whom were refugees from previous battles. The actual battle began 1 month later in the fall of 67. Outside of the walls is a model of the Roman catapult used to shoot arrows and ballista balls. 2,000 ballista balls, 100 catapult balls, and thousands of arrowheads and iron nails were discovered here, attesting to the fierce battle. This was such a staggering amount of weaponry discovered, more than any other site in the entire Roman Empire. The Romans divided into 3 sections using their battery rams in an attempt to breach the walls and put constant pressure, which pushed and shook the walls until they were finally breached at one point. Evidence of this breach is still visible today. When the Romans poured through the breach, they encountered an artillery barrage by the defenders. The Jews fought with great courage. Then they lured the Romans into a trap by climbing the narrow alleys. The Romans, attempting to take advantage, climbed the roofs of the houses. But with their heavy armor and equipment, the roofs caved in, taking with it stones and timbers that went cascading down the mountain, resulting in the Romans being crushed and suffocated. Any survivor was cut down by the defenders. This was a huge, humiliating defeat for the Romans, something unfamiliar to them. On the other hand, this victory was a tremendous morale booster for the defenders. But this was short-lived. Rome does not surrender. They regrouped on the 22nd day of Tishrei. 3 soldiers crept to the base of the main tower in the dark. They methodically removed 5 of the foundation stones, causing the tower to collapse. At dawn, Titus stormed the city. The defenders fought valiantly, but they were severely outnumbered and cut down. Others ran to the peak. Vespasian climbed to the highest elevation, a rocky and difficult ascent. The Jews killed those ascending by rolling stones at the enemy. Eventually the Romans surrounded them, killing all in sight without mercy. Josephus estimated that 4,000 defenders died this way. Being surrounded and unable to escape, the multitude of people decided it was better to die by suicide than die at the hands of the Romans or be sold into slavery. Seeing no other way, 5,000 men, women, and children threw themselves into the deep ravine. The ancient remains are a testimony of these devastating but valiant events. Even before reaching the ancient ruins, there are trails leading to the other magnificent parts of this park. From the parking lot is a trail leading to the dolmens, which are basalt rocks or volcanic stones. These date way back to the prehistoric early Bronze Age and were used as burial tombs. Continue on the path which will lead you to the highest waterfall in Israel, 51 meters high, which feeds into the Gamla stream canyon. Another short trail leads to the lookout point, which offers spectacular views. Beyond that is a vulture observatory overlooking nesting colonies. The final segment of this trail will lead you to the ruins of the Byzantine village. Then double back to the trail that brings you to the ancient city. These amazing ruins bring the story back to life. Gamla was settled numerous times before the revolt, as attested to by the large quantity of ruins from various times. However, it was never resettled after the fall during the Great Revolt. Therefore, the ruins from that time were not covered over or destroyed, allowing archaeologists to verify the previous rich life and the veracity of the battle, as attested to by Josephus. He had been the first-hand witness to this intense battle. Along the route are metal plaques with quotes from him. From a distance, the eastern wall that was reinforced by Josephus is visible. Near the model of the catapult would have been from where the Romans fired at the city. This put them out of the reach of the arrows of the defenders. Looking to the right to the top of the wall is the remains of the round tower, which was collapsed by the Romans. Then continue on the path to where the battering ram breached the wall. This was the first breach which initially lured the Romans into the trap. Immediately to the right side are the remnants of the homes. It was homes like these which collapsed under the weight of the Roman armor. Right above this section is the entrance to the impressive ancient synagogue. This synagogue is one of the oldest in the country and one of only a handful from that time period of the Second Temple. There are remains of benches that had been arranged all around. It was not oriented towards Jerusalem as they are in later time periods. It was said to be able to seat about 400 people. The shul was a colonnaded structure with decorated capitals which supported the roof. Many catapult arrowheads were discovered here, indicating that an intense battle occurred here as well. Right next to the shul are the remains of a mikveh. 4 steps lead to the bottom. The walls are covered in plaster. It was one of 4 mikvaot uncovered in the city, and this was the largest. At this point, visitors have the option to continue on the long or the short trail. The long trail leads to another section of the city from the Roman era of the 1st century CE. This was the wealthy section. The homes and the roads were made of high-quality, smooth-hewn stones. There were 2-story houses, and nearby was a flour mill. Also nearby were the ruins of one of the most complete and large oil presses. Arches supported the roof. If visitors choose to take the short route, it would pass a residential area from the Hashmonaim era, which predates the Roman era. Here, too, we find numerous ruins, including homes, a mikveh, an oil press, and a great deal of coins. If you continue a little higher, this is where the Gamla Revolt story continues. Here is the reconstructed tower which toppled and allowed the Romans access to the city. From here, visitors have breathtaking views. There is a narrow path leading to the peak of the mountain. It was along here that the Jews fled in a chaotic state in attempts to both encounter the Romans from the high ground and to flee. The Jews continued to battle the Romans by throwing darts and rolling stones, until at last they were totally surrounded. If one continues to the summit, you overlook the Kinneret. Standing at the top, you come to the point of no return. The defenders were surrounded by the Romans. They had nowhere to go but down. Jumping down these deep ravines offered no escape or hope. All they offered was death with dignity, and that was the route that 5,000 people took. Gamla is also known as the Masada of the North, due to the similar stories, although Gamla preceded Masada by 6 years, although it is not as famous. In any event, Gamla is known as a heroic, desperate, and determined fight conducted by the Jews against a far larger, better armed, trained, and equipped mighty Roman army. While the results were a devastating defeat, the Jews inflicted tremendous losses against their enemy. A number of coins from this time was unearthed with the inscription, "For the redemption of Holy Jerusalem." This inscription reveals the attitude of the defenders. Not only were they battling for their lives and their homes, but they were also part of a national struggle. They fought for their freedom, for the way of the Jewish life, and to save Jerusalem. In the end, the battle for Gamla only slowed the Romans down, who were determined to continue their destructive assault towards Jerusalem. It ended with a tragic Jewish defeat with exile and the destruction of the Second Temple. A visit to the Gamla National Park not only brings its history alive, but affords visitors beautiful nature, hiking trails, a Golan memorial, a vulture observation, and is definitely worth the visit.